Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the sixth episode of the Beyond the Assembly Line podcast. My name is Harsh,
I'm Sommie.
and we have another one of our amazing professors here, Dr. Calabrese. He is one of the first professors that taught me, as well as many others, academic discipline. And but we'll be talking about his background in engineering, his journey into becoming CFO of Lockheed Martin, as well as transitioning into academia. So, Sommie, take it away.
All right, so today, like Hirsch said, we'll be talking about Professor Calabrese's career journey, some of his leadership insights, lessons he learned from entrepreneurship, and some advice for engineering students. So thank you, Professor Mark, for coming on. We really appreciate you taking the time to share some knowledge with us.
Thank you for having me. This is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, to start off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Let's see. In a couple of days, I turn 69 years old.
You look great.
I
You
never
look great
thought
for
I'd
your
make
age.
it this far. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and didn't know anything other than New York until my father, a very domineering Italian father, said, "You're going to Florida Technological University for college." And I thought, where is that? What is that? And I came down here, and the university was a lot different, as we were talking about before we started. Much smaller, but very close knit. That's what I loved about it, and I still feel it's the same way today. But so I came to Florida for the first time at 18 years old, and I thought the first couple of months, what am I doing here? I'm a city boy. I grew up in New York. After that, I've been back to New York twice in the last 45 years.
Oh, wow.
My daughter lives there. I'll visit her periodically, but she'll come visit me. So I don't miss New York. I came here for school. Like I said, I got my first degree from FTU, Florida Technological University, which then I got my master's degree from University of Central Florida, same school.
Perfect.
My desires back then were quite different than they are today. You want to conquer the world. You think you want to do everything, and that's a good thing. But I got up my first job out of school and realized I think someday I want to come back to the university. So I decided to quit my job after a year, and I went to Colorado State University for my PhD. In industry, that is, unless you're in research and development, you keep it quiet. So for my whole entire engineering career, nobody really knew I had a PhD. I didn't publicize it. I still don't publicize it. I prefer being called Mark, So anyway, went to Colorado State, got my PhD, and I thought I'm going to put that on the back burner. Someday I'd like to teach again. And then I was in industry. I went to work for big corporations. I had the opportunity to work for small companies or big companies, and I've done both. I preferred the big companies, lots more opportunity, and we'll talk more about that. But I was very fortunate at age 44 to retire. I had made a lot of money in industry. There are benefits to academia and industry. You're going to get beat up pretty bad in industry, but you're going to make a lot of money. And life at the university is wonderful, but you're not going to make any money, so there's 6 one, half dozen of the other. But anyway, at 44, I had made a lot of money, and I'll tell you that story later, and retired and was bored to tears. I was with my kids. My daughters were 7 and 17 at the time. And I'd volunteer at my daughter's elementary school. And after a while, they don't want you around.
Yeah.
So the university said, "Hey, why don't you teach a class, see if you like it?" And I've been here for 20 and a half years now. So that's kind of the background.
All right, I love that. We'll dive a little bit deeper into everything you just said. So you're currently teaching right now.
Yes.
But let's take it all the way back to where the academic journey began. What inspired you to study engineering and the specific type of engineering that you decided to pursue?
That, Sommie, is a great question, and you're not going to like the answer. So again, back to my domineering father. I didn't get a vote. He said, "You're going to be an engineer." Okay. Now, luckily, I like math, and so it worked out great. My father has long since passed away, but I thank him for that. So I came to the university, and before I was told I was going to be an engineer, I wanted to be an oceanographer.
Whoa.
Jacques Cousteau, you know. So the closest thing to that in engineering was environmental engineering, and that's what I got my bachelor's degree in. My master's was in civil engineering. I started moving out of environmental into more engineering. And then my PhD was in systems engineering. And what's funny is I've been teaching industrial engineering for 20 years. I never knew I was an industrial engineer, you know, because it's so broad. You can do almost anything in industrial engineering. That's my true passion, you know. But yeah, that's kind of how I got into engineering. I was told I was going to be in engineering. Very fortunate for me because it's a great career.
That's nice. I think with certain cultures, I know I'm Nigerian, and a lot of Nigerians, it's kind of a long-running joke, but you have three options: doctor, lawyer, engineer.
Right.
And I feel like my family fits perfectly into that.
Yes.
So kind of similar.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
So you did your bachelor's in environmental engineering.
Yes.
And did you do your master's right after that?
Yes. I went directly into it. And there's pros and cons to that. But back in those days, that was the norm. You didn't go take time off and go to work. You just get it. Today, you have a lot of different opportunities.
Okay. And then you worked for a year and then went back to get your PhD?
Yeah. I went to work for a small consulting firm. It was called Reynolds, Smith and Hills. It may still be around. It was basically in the Southeast, so it wasn't a national or international company.
Okay.
But yeah, I went to work there and enjoyed it. But I was also looking forward to getting my PhD. And we talked about this before we came in here, getting away from what I've known so long in Orlando. I wanted to go experience something new. So Colorado was good for me.
So did you always know you wanted to get your PhD after your master's?
Yeah, only because I love the university environment so much. I knew I wasn't going to go directly into teaching. Again, there's no money in it. And I'm not saying the world is money driven, but if you have the capabilities, go make millions of dollars and then come back to the university. So I knew I wanted to come back someday, but as you guys get older and you start families, you start getting handcuffed. You can't do all the things you want to do. So get as much of that out of the way when you're young as possible. And that's why I did it.
Okay.
Amazing. And I kind of want to pivot into how did education shape your approach in problem solving as well as leadership?
That's a great question, Hirsch. It's funny you say that because over the years while I was running big companies, I was the CFO, but the CEOs of the company would come to me and say, where are you finding all these great people? And you're going to find them in the engineering ranks anywhere because we teach a process of how to think, so it shapes you. Engineering shapes you because you know how to problem solve and you're not afraid of problem solving. So many other disciplines, and I'm not disparaging other majors, but that's what we do. We solve problems, right?
Right.
That's the norm. It's not this came up, how do we handle it? We do this every minute of every day. So I think it shapes you in a certain way, and from that, leadership comes. Now, let me tell you, I teach a class. I teach a number of classes here, but I teach one called Environment of Technical Organizations. And we try to show students what they're going to face in their careers going forward, because you really don't know. I didn't know at this age. You read textbooks, but it's not real world, right? So how do you motivate? How do you demotivate? Things like that. And there is a giant difference between management and leadership. We need both. The manager crosses the T's, dot the I's, make sure you follow the policies, no forgiveness policy. The leaders bend the rules to get the job done. So I think as engineers, the first step is your degree. The second step is running into problems. The third is realizing there's a lot of different ways of solving that problem, including bending the rules sometimes. So I think one leads into the other.
Very cool.
That's a great answer. I think that I feel like I said this in a previous episode, but a lot of people are anti school now, especially further education.
Mm-hmm.
And they say that with certain careers, you could do it without the degree, which I understand. But I think that with certain things in school, especially like an engineering degree, they teach you how to think. Like it's not necessarily
Exactly.
the topics that we're learning in class, but they teach you how to think about the process, critical thinking to solve the problem. I think that that's where the big advantage is.
Totally agree with you. And I've seen it over the decades that I've, been both in education and in industry. But yeah, look, anybody with a brain can achieve whatever they want. But removing obstacles and making it easier, the degree does that for you. Because like you said, it teaches you a toolkit that you might not have if you just come up, without the education. Yeah.
I remember in the beginning of my sophomore year, I think we took the same cost engineering class that you taught
really?
here. And I guess I didn't realize you were in that class.
I didn't know you
were
were
talking about it earlier.
I didn't know you were in that either.
But I feel like I learned a lot of discipline from class as well. Like I was saying earlier, you told us in the first week that, you got to read the syllabus, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And I did not read the syllabus fully. I definitely did not, because the next day of classes, he was like, turn in your favorite planets, guys.
Right.
I was like, favorite planet?
What is
Favorite
it?
planet?
I know.
What?
I'm still getting that, by the way.
And my friend next to me, she's like, yeah, did you not read the syllabus? I was like, he's like, he drilled that into us the first day. I was like, oh man. So I got a 0 on the assignment and learned a very hefty lesson. So
I got the 0 too. I got the 0.
Though, guys, I think that is the more important thing. Look, that cost engineering class and engineering economics class,
Yes.
I took it in 1976, and I was just finishing my sophomore year. That was the class that I thought, oh my God, I like engineering. This is what I want to do someday, right? And it's important. I use it every day in my life, in personal life and in professional life.
Mm-hmm.
But I tell all my students what I've told you as well. Nobody cares how smart you are when you leave the university. They do care about, can you get along? Can you follow our rules? Can you help us make money? So I'm faced with that same issue. It's frustrating, I'll tell you. As a professor, it's frustrating because I feel like on certain days, it's daycare.
Yeah.
Oh, professor, is there anything I can do to get this grade higher? Yeah, take the class again. I've told you 6 times and you're not learning. I teach a project engineering class. It's the same thing. On projects, it's no forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
If you miss the font size that's required, you've worked 2 years on a proposal and they throw it out because you've missed it. So details are important.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that is very important that students don't get in school because it's not taught in a textbook. It's taught in real life. I've always said making mistakes is not a bad thing, as long as it doesn't kill you or, or ruin your career.
For sure.
But you're going to learn more from a mistake than you're going to learn from continued success. So that's why I put those things in there. I want to get your attention. Look, 1 0 out of 8, minimal effect on your grade.
Right.
But I want it to be that wake-up call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it definitely was. Definitely was.
Yeah, I check every syllabus now. Like, up until it gets to like the academic integrity, like there's a certain point where it's all the same.
Right,
but
right.
Everything before that, I check every single time now.
Good. And I still get emails from students from 2004 saying, Professor, you have helped me in my career. Not because I taught them something, from a textbook. It was because you told me to expect this and it happened to my career. Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
You want to move on to the early career? Well, we know you became an executive for Lockheed, but did you work beforehand? Like after you got your PhD, did you work for a few years before?
Oh, yeah.
Like working up to that? What did you do?
They didn't just, crown me king. And in fact, I'll never forget, Sommie, when I was finishing my master's degree, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do. So I was interviewing with different companies. And there was a company in Tampa. It was a construction company. I don't know if you're a football fan, but Raymond James Stadium is the newer stadium. Before that, there was a stadium. It was called the Big Sombrero. It was a big concrete structure. And this company made that. So they're a big construction company. And the CEO of the company was this really salty old guy, and he decided there were 5 of us that he was going to interview, and we all drive up to Tampa to his house on Tampa Bay, and we're thinking, all right, this is cool. We're going to go work for this guy. And he explains to us that you're not going to see any engineering for the first 5 years. He says, I'm going to put you in procurement for a year. I'm going to put you here and here. And we all looked at each other like, screw this. I mean, don't you know who we are? We're engineers.
Right.
And I didn't take that job. Not smart move to not take the job. It's what he was doing was a smart move. So when I got my PhD and I went to go work for a company called Rockwell International, I liked software, and I was writing software code for the actual space shuttle.
Wow.
And it was cool, but I realized kind of a dead end. So after a year and a half, I looked for another job, and I found a job with this company. I didn't even know the company's name. It was an acronym, MDTSCO. I was just trying to leave Rockwell because I wasn't happy there anymore. And I went to work for this company, and it stood for McDonnell Douglas Technical Services Company. I loved McDonnell Douglas. I was with them for 20 years until Boeing bought them. I met my boss. They say the most important relationship you're going to have in your company, even if you know the CEO, the best relationship you're going to have is with your immediate supervisor. And they had just hired this guy from NASA. His name was Dallas Gillespie. I have his name tattooed on my arm because he's one of my mentors. Mm. And I told him, look, I'm an engineer with a PhD. He never called me Mark. It was Calabrese, I don't care. And I feel the same way these days. I don't care. What do you want to do? I said, I really enjoy the numbers. I really enjoy the money side. So for the first 5 years with that company, I was in budgeting. Then I was in contracts. Then I was in finance. Then I was in something called program control, which had configuration control. And it was a brilliant move because after that amount of time, when a senior manager spot opened up, who was the best candidate for it? The guy who knows all the things below it.
Right.
And then it was rapid above that. Senior manager, branch manager, senior manager, director, vice president, CFO, boom, boom, boom. Because you know everything below it. Yeah. So I think it's a wise move to do that. So no, I wasn't crowned king. I had to get there. And I highly recommend that too.
How did you make that transition from being more of the technical engineer to going into management roles and eventually an executive role?
Not well. I didn't do it well. I tell my students these days, and I say it completely honestly, when I look back at the Mark Calabrese in my 30s, I'm embarrassed. I was a great manager. I thought I was a great leader. I was a great manager. I would not have worked for me. I was a complete ass, to be honest with you. I once told my employees, nobody's going home tonight until we finish this project. That's against the law, by the way. It breaks 4 or 5 different laws. That's the kind of dumbass I was. So I had to make those mistakes. And luckily, my mentors, Dallas Gillespie, George Faenza, they were the people that you knew always had your best interest at heart. They weren't going to make it easy on you. They were going to call you into the office and beat the hell out of you, but you knew that it was in your best interest to do so. So I did not handle that transition well. I thought I was the golden child of this company. I could do no wrong. Don't you know who I am? And that's a terrible attitude. So it took me a long time to, quote, grow up into leadership. And today, I would want to work for me today. I wouldn't want to work for me back then. Yeah.
Well, you were the CFO of Lockheed, correct?
And McDonnell Douglas. Yeah, large components of it. Mm-hmm.
And for a company of that magnitude, mm-hmm. of that level of scale, what are some of the biggest challenges that you faced managing such a large organization?
Number one, and I think about this all the time, the number one challenge is you are an island. Your company is mad at you because you're not making enough money. Your customer is mad at you because you're making too much money. And you're in the middle trying to balance that all the time. NASA was my customer most of the time, or Department of Defense. Mm-hmm. And look, that's big boy and big girl school. Yeah. There's no coddling you. You're getting beat up on a daily basis. One of my friends today was my customer at NASA. His name was Elliot Zimmerman. And on a weekly basis, he was in the president's office saying, fire Calabrese, and the president will come in. What did you do now? I have no idea, But that's one of the biggest challenges at that level is that you can't please anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And you're in the hierarchy of organizations, CEO is the top, right? Below that is CFO. But the CFO is the only one that can tell the CEO no. So when you have the ability to tell people no, you can't have that money, no, we can't afford it, nobody likes you, right? So that's one of the biggest challenges.
Yeah, that is incredible. I wish I could tell people no.
Yeah. No, hey, be careful what you wish for. You have no friends.
That's fair. So you've definitely dabbled into like lessons about like your leadership, but any big red flags or like something that really stood out to you when you were talking about your leadership and decision making?
Yeah, there are red flags. Don't believe your own press. Don't believe you're as good as people tell you. Some people say it sincerely, and some say it, just to ingratiate themselves to you. But regardless of whether it's sincere or not, don't believe you're as good as you think you are, because on any given day, it could all come down, right? You're only as good as your last decision. And the higher you go, you think, oh, I can tell people no, I can do this. No, you have less and less ability. I'll give you an example. I was a Denver Broncos fan. And when the Denver Broncos made the Super Bowl, one of our vendors said, hey, I got 2 50-yard line tickets to the Super Bowl for you.
Oh, my gosh.
I can't take that.
Oh,
no,
man.
I'm not allowed to take that,
Wow.
So
I'm just so upset.
Yeah. Yeah. So the higher you go doesn't necessarily mean you have more power. In fact, you have to be more benevolent to everybody and level the playing field. So that's one of the red flags. Don't go do stupid things because your title is up here.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody cares about your title up here. That title has responsibilities. There's legal responsibilities, and then there's just moral responsibilities. You're no longer one of the boys. You are the parent over this company, and you have to be benevolent to everybody.
Wow. Like, I feel like we learned a little bit like that of that collaboration in terms of in systems engineering, like the little survey that we had during class.
Yeah.
And it was like going over key things that you should talk about or like look into when talking about collaboration. One of them is just being able to speak to your peers like on the same level. Like you're not just a leader, you're also everyone else is in the same boat with you.
That's right.
So
that's right.
And then like what should engineers understand about business and maybe a finance to grow in their careers?
We have a peculiar discipline in industrial engineering because it's one of the broadest disciplines you'll ever find.
Right.
Manufacturing, business process reengineering, optimization, it's all over the place. By the way, who do you think is the number one hiring industry for industrial engineers?
Supply chain.
You say supply chain.
Maybe manufacturing.
Hospitals.
Oh.
And you say,
okay.
That's right.
Well.
And most people say, oh. So why? Because follow the money. Always follow the money. I'll never forget many summers ago. Summers are great. You keep your door open. There's not a million students out there trying to get in to see you. And I'm working at my desk and I look up and there's this giant guy filling my doorway. I thought, now what? I grew up in Brooklyn. It's like, all right, what weapon do I need to get, right? And he said, can you help me? My name is Matt Graybill, and I work for Parish Medical Hospital in Titusville. I said, I think so. Have a seat. What can I help you with? He said, I just came back from a conference in Chicago, and the keynote speaker said, if you have an industrial engineering college in your backyard and you're not tapping into them, you are losing money. And so, Medicare reimburses hospitals for taking care of people who are on Medicare, aging people. But over the years, they got smart and they said, look, unless you can get people through your emergency room quicker, we're not paying you. Unless you can get people out the door quicker after rehabilitation without them coming back, we're not paying you. So they come to the industrial engineers and say, help us. We do simulations. Where's the bottleneck of getting people, why do I have to wait in an emergency room for 4 hours? What's the
Right.
bottleneck? So there's that. And I just got to tell this interesting story.
Sure.
We mentioned the coffee with Mark thing, right?
Yeah.
My wife is from Spain, and we went through the immigration process to get her here. It's taken forever. But we're waiting and waiting and waiting. And, you're paying your fees, and you can't talk to anybody in immigration. It just kind of, they'll let you know. One day on my university email, I get an email from immigration. And I'm thinking, oh, finally, some word. And it's a guy named Mark Dolan. And it says, Mark, I don't know you, you don't know me, but I'm hoping you can help me. I'm the head of immigration for the entire Southeast region. I was going online because I need help. Immigration is broken, he said. And I need help from an industrial engineer. And I found this Coffee with Mark thing. And can you help me? And I said, Mark, I'll help you if you help me. Now, my wife has her green card. But yeah. So, I mean, we are broad, but we tap into every different industry, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. And I actually didn't expect healthcare to be so as popular for students to go into as I
It's
thought.
big money.
Yeah.
Healthcare is big money, and hospitals aren't getting money unless we can help them. They'll pay. Well, Advent Health, there's got to be 25 of our students working there over the years. Shawnee Dusan is the head of it right now. Yeah, they're always optimizing.
Yeah. Actually, one of our friends just started working there like
Yeah.
2-3 weeks ago as
Very
an
recent.
industrial engineer.
Yeah. Yeah, nobody would pick her hospitals. Nobody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have one question before we move on. So I'm assuming even when you were the CFO of Lockheed, it was still a public company at the time. It was
It's still
publicly
public,
traded?
yeah.
So I'm very into like finance and like the stock market. Like I trade a little bit, and I've just always wondered for those big organizations, for the people at the top, when there's a big news event or like macroeconomic event that drastically drops the stock, what are the conversations like for the executives in that boardroom? Like, what are y'all talking about? What is the feeling of everyone?
We don't generally talk about how it affects us personally, but we talk about how it affects the company. But the honesty is we're thinking about how is it affecting us personally. I don't know if you know how stock options work, but stock options are essentially free to us. It's a reward system. They say, Lockheed Martin, January 17th was the strike date. They say, we're going to give you 10,000 shares of Lockheed Martin stock. Doesn't cost me a penny. They're going to just give it to me. And the strike price is going to be whatever it is on January 17th. Let's say it was $100 a share. If it drops down to $50 a share, I haven't lost anything. I have nothing no money out of pocket. If it goes to $150 a share, I've made $50 times 10,000 shares. Now, I may be handcuffed. They won't let me cash it out for a 3-year period or a 1-year period, but I've made that money. That difference is mine. So when we have this giant swing, and let me tell you, with the political climate today,
Oh yeah,
it's bizarre. I'm like you. I love the stock market. I'll tell you, outside of this, what shares I'm holding, but it's getting decimated by the tariffs that are, being discussed. Not discussed today; they're being implemented. So we don't talk about it personally, but the common thing that we discuss is, look, let's look at the long term. Don't look at a day. Don't look at a week. If you've ever looked at stock prices, even during the day, it's like this.
It's constantly
and over
fluctuating.
time, it's going up and up, but it doesn't go straight line. It goes down a little, up a little.
Yeah.
So you got to focus on the big picture. That's what we talk about.
Okay.
Unless it's something that we've done or we have not a competitor. I teach another class, engineering management. There's a thing called Porter's 5 forces model. And any company needs to look at the 5 forces that are hitting it at any time. One is rivalries. One is substitutions, threat of substitution. If you didn't see something coming, like nobody saw the Apple iPhone coming a long time ago.
Right.
It's like, wow. And it took Android 6 years to catch up. Unless it's something like that where you say, all right, we got to do something, then you just stay the course. If you believe your strategy is sound, you stay the course. You look at the bigger picture.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we can move on then. I was always been curious about what those conversations are like. So you worked as an executive for a couple years. You were in industry, and then you decided to go off on your own and start a consulting company. Yeah. What inspired you or motivated you to make that leap to entrepreneurship? I
actually didn't make the decision. It was made for me. Again, my father was dead at this time, so it wasn't my father at this time. But I was retired. I was at my kid's school, and I was bored. You know, we're technologists. We want challenges and stuff.
Oh, so you had retired from being a CFO.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And if you'd like, I'll tell you how I got to that point. But I was retired, and all my former students, think about it, over a 18-year period, they start becoming CEOs. They start becoming generals in the Army, and they call me and say, hey, can you help us out on this project? And you can't tell your friends no. So I only started a company because friends would call and say, can you do some consulting with us? Can you help us out? And I'd say, okay, and you help this one out. And then 5 other friends find out you just helped this one out. So it started growing. But the good news was I was able to tap into students, undergraduates and graduates, and get them lots of experience. A lot of them want to be professional engineers someday. The only way you can do that is you have to have 5 years of experience under a professional engineer. So this was incrementally helping them. It helped my friends. I didn't care anymore. I liked the challenges, but I got into it strictly because I was helping friends.
So why did you retire?
Okay, so this is an interesting story.
Big question.
Yeah.
So in 1998, I'm sitting in my office at Lake Underhill. I'm working for Lockheed Martin. I had switched over to Lockheed Martin. I was stolen from McDonnell Douglas. I got home one day and there was a message on my answering machine. Hey, my name's Tony Paneri. You don't know me. I work for Lockheed Martin. We've heard great things about you. Would you be interested in talking to us about a job? Long story short, I went to work for them. But Lockheed Martin is a big corporation, has lots of different skill sets and companies. The company I went to work for was called Integrated Business Solutions, and it was a brilliant move on Lockheed Martin's part. They had 150,000 employees. So to manage the IT services of 150,000 employees, you have to be pretty damn good. And they realized there's some value in this. Why don't we go out there and sell these services to other companies? And we did. So that company went from 0 to $1 billion in revenues in 5 years.
Wow.
Gosh.
So I'm working for this company and sitting in my office, and the president of the company came in one day and he said, hey, we just won another big contract, and it was with Gap, the clothing company in San Francisco. And I said, oh, man, that sounds great. I knew about it. I'm the CFO. I knew about it. He says, we got to find the program manager for it. We got to find our best person. I said, okay, Gary. I thought he was asking me to go find the best person. And he looked at me and he said, no, you dumbass, it's you. And I said, I'm not moving to San Francisco. He says, we're going to make it worth your while. I said, I'm not moving to San Francisco. I must have said it 10 times. Long story short, I was in San Francisco, but I cut a deal with them that I would commute. And I literally, I don't know what your commute's like, but mine was Monday mornings at 7:00, flying out to San Francisco.
From Orlando.
From Orlando.
Oh my
That's
God.
across the country.
Because of the time difference, you get there at 9:00 in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
So I went right into work. And Fridays, I'd leave at 3:00 in the afternoon. A limo would pick me up, take me to the airport. I'd fly back, and my wife and my daughter would meet me at the airport. 11:00, we'd go to Denny's and have breakfast at 11 p.m. And I'd sleep the entire weekend in my bed, but then I'd fly back. So I did that for a year. And one day I'm sitting in my office in San Francisco, and my younger daughter at the time, Savannah, was 7 years old. 7, yeah. So must have been kindergarten or first grade. And my secretary comes in and says, Mark, your daughter's teacher's on the phone. So, of course, as a parent, you panic, like, pick up the phone. Is Savannah okay? Yes. Best teacher I've ever heard of in life. She says, Mr. Calabrese, it's time for you to come home. And I said, what's going on? She says, your daughter misses you. Every day she talks about you, every class assignment she does about you, et cetera, et cetera. And I thought, wow, I mean, you're a parent. That's more important than business. So I went to my president at Lockheed Martin and I said, Gary, his name is Gary, man. Gary, look, this happened. I need to come home. And he said, no, we're making a boatload of money off of you being there. And they love you. And I said, I'm coming home one way or the other.
Right.
And he said, good luck to you.
Wow.
So remember, I mean, in your careers, as good as you may be, on any given day, it could be anything, right? So I went to the CEO of Gap. His name was Mickey Drexler, and he was a legend in the business. And I told him the same thing, and he said, I understand that, and I admire that. I'll make a deal with you. Stay 6 more months, and I'll pay you what we're paying Lockheed Martin for you. And I said, Mickey, I don't think you know how much money. He said, oh, I know exactly how much. I'll write you a check for $1 million if you stay another 6 months. And what are you going to do when you get back to Orlando? I said, oh, I love children's charities. He says, I'll write you 2 $50,000 charity checks as well. So I stayed for 6 months. I'd already made enough money, but you get another $1 million to throw into the bank.
Can't hurt. Yeah, it doesn't hurt.
So that's how I wound up retiring at 44.
Wow.
That is so amazing.
Yeah.
Like I can't even imagine like if I was in your position, I'd want to get out there too. Like that's so awesome.
But you know, students come to me all the time and say, I want to be just like you. I want to charge $400 an hour. I said, you have to have something worth $400 an hour. And what's worth the $400 an hour is all the beatings and the mistakes and the problems that you didn't see. You don't just get crowned, you know, you got to go in and earn it. Oh. So one of the things I want whoever listening to hear is this. The biggest thing I was proud of in my career, if you're a football fan, they used to call me the tough yardage guy. I don't know. I was not a big fan of his, but Marshawn Lynch. You know, if they needed a yard, they gave the ball to him. They knew he was going to get it. Mm-hmm. And I was the equivalent in my companies. They felt the same way about me. So how do you get there? I highly recommend this. Most people shy away from, oh, that's an insurmountable problem. You're on the other way. Not me. I may just be dumb. I'd say, give it to me. Let me do it. Now, look at the reasoning of this. The company knows it has an insurmountable problem. And if you're the boss and you have an insurmountable problem, you know it's not going to be easy finding somebody to go willingly do that. But if somebody comes up to you and says, I volunteer, wow, all of a sudden you pay attention to this person. Now, if you fail, the company knew it was going to fail anyway. And if you succeed, you're invincible. So take the tough jobs. Don't shy away from it. I've had thousands and thousands of people work for me in my career. I know the names of all the great ones, and I know the names of all the horrible ones. Everybody else that just kind of sits there and does their thing, I don't know their names. You know, they're going to get their 3 or 4% raise. They're going to get their promotion after being there 7 years. But if you're the one that's willing to take on the tough challenges, I want you. So I think that's a smart move in business. Don't do something stupid. I mean, don't take on a job that you have no skill set to solve. But we're industrial engineers. We're very broad. And you'd be amazed. You'd surprise yourself how many problems you can solve. So I think that is a mechanism for advancement that students don't recognize. My opinion.
So if like opportunity comes your way, typically the go-to answer would be yes. But obviously analyze the risk before you take it. Yeah. I think we talked to a previous guest about this as well. Like if opportunity comes your way, like don't shy away from it.
Right.
Definitely try and do something about it.
And don't be shy. The meek don't inherit the earth. So what I mean by that is, hey, do your job. You know, don't be a pain in somebody's butt, but go to your boss and say, here are my aspirations in life. Can you help me get there? You know, you're only going to get somewhere with a good mentor. And if you're quiet and meek and nobody knows what you want, yeah, you'll get your raises and you'll get your promotions eventually. But if you can work with your boss, your immediate supervisor, and they know what you want, they can remove obstacles and help you get there. And when an opportunity presents itself, it's not like they didn't know to come to you. They know that, oh, wait a minute, this might be perfect for Sommie, something like that.
Mm-hmm. So I guess I have another question. So what's the most impactful project or client that you've worked with throughout your entire history?
Wow, that's a really good question. So impactful has a lot of tentacles to it, right? There are technologic problems. And I can't really say I've solved technological problems because I like the business side more. So maybe this may not answer your question.
Okay.
One of my clients, when I was the CFO at Lockheed Martin, it was called Integrated Business Solutions Company, was CVS Pharmacy.
Okay.
And their headquarters was in Woonsocket, Rhode Island. So they were having a major problem with our delivery. Our delivery was information technology. We would install these small satellites. You'll see them now wherever you go, on the top of a 7-Eleven, on the top of a CVS. It's a little small dish. They're called VSATs, very small aperture telemetry. And they immediately book a sale. As soon as you give a credit card, boom, it immediately books a sale at headquarters. Or you buy something in the store, it immediately notifies the supply chain, we need to refill this. So that's what we did. But we weren't doing it well. And their head was a guy named Adel Sidki. Adel was this big Egyptian guy. And he hated us, hated our deliveries. So who do they send to go talk to him but the tough yardage guy, right? So I fly in. He doesn't even shake my hand. I mean, no pleasantries at all. And he uses all the psychological stuff. He's sitting in a chair, elevated up to here. I get to sit across from him in a desk, low chair, like I'm in kindergarten. And for an hour, he just tore into me about how bad we were. Listened. And after about an hour, I said, Adele, I'm tired. I flew in. We're going to continue this. You're going to meet me tonight at Capitol Grill. We're going to have a steak. We're going to have a couple of drinks, and we're going to talk this out. And we did. And you get out of the environment of, angry client and delivery. And we sat there, had a drink. I found out about his family, found out about mine. And all of a sudden, now we're on common ground. And the next day, it's how do we work to fix this problem? So I would say that is probably one of my biggest successes, to realize. That's when I felt like I finally become a leader, Mm-hmm. I could have look, I'm Italian. I don't care if you're Egyptian. I don't care if you're Nigerian. I don't care. You argue with me, I'm going to argue back with you. What are we solving here? I think that was non-engineering, but certainly leadership or engineering management related success. My opinion.
Very, very incredible.
Well, you decided, once you started your consulting business, you've been running that, you've been doing that for a while, and then you decided to go back into academia.
Right.
Why did you? Was it because you were bored, like you said, or?
No, I've done them simultaneously, and you can. That's one of the benefits of working at a university. You can do both. So I've done them simultaneously. I've told Michael Georgopoulos is our dean. He's really good. I love the guy. He's a friend and he's my boss. But I've always said, Michael, don't take this verbatim, but I would do this job for free because I'm working with these brilliant young people. And you have great flexibility. So you can do more than one thing at a time. I'm getting the technical challenges from consulting, but I'm getting the real feeling like I'm making a difference in teaching. I've made corporations billions of dollars, and I didn't feel successful at all. But I get an email or a text from a student, and I feel like, man, I'm going to do this forever.
That is so great. And then, like, how did you apply the industry experience that you learned into the classroom? Because I know you teach a project engineering class, so that's very hand in hand.
Yeah. Yeah. You learn a lot, again, from the mistakes. So it's funny. I gave the last pop exercise in this 5140 project engineering class the other day, and it was a simple one. Tell me the 3 things you liked about the class, the 3 things you didn't like about the class. Almost universally, the 3 things that they liked were real world stuff, talking about mistakes that you've made and how you've corrected them. So I think there's some value to that. Translating the past into a teachable moment. I want you guys to make mistakes, but I don't want you to make giant mistakes, and I don't want you to make as many as I've made. So if you could remember my stories and it avoids a mistake or 2, then I've done my job. So that's how I feel the past has helped the future. I always start my project engineering class by saying, who has done a project in this class? And, a couple of people raised their hand. And I said, Bull, you all have done a project. You're getting your master's degree at a major university. That is a project. There are 3 components to a project. There's budget, schedule, and performance. Is there a money outlay for your degree? Yes. Is there a schedule that you want to get through and UCF stands for you can't finish? Yes. And then there's performance. Do you want to excel in your classes? So, utilizing that in a real world example that people can understand, I think, is the benefit. And I've seen everything. I've done everything, made every mistake you could make. If I can implement that, and that's what these students are saying, look, your real world experiences, I never knew this would happen. I never knew this was a possibility. And then 10 years later, you get an email from somebody, you told me this would happen, and I was ready for it. That's the kind of stuff that the past helps the future, I think.
That is so cool. Like, I want to be a professor now. Like, I want to get my PhD and then start teaching, and hopefully,
well, get experience first. Teach from experience. Don't teach from a textbook. It's one of my problems with the university. Okay. Look, I have nothing to gain or lose, and I call it like I see them. I love universities. They're great, but I have 2 problems with the university. One is they require a terminal degree for you to teach. Okay, so Steve Jobs, if he was still alive, didn't have his PhD, he can't teach at a university? That's dumb. You don't have to have a terminal degree. The other thing is many students get their bachelor's, master's, PhD, and then they go teach. What are you teaching me that I don't already know? I can read a textbook just as much as you can. Go out there and work for 10 years and bring something of value to me, which is your life experiences. Now you're teaching me something. So go out there and make money and gain some experience through successes and failures.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm taking a class right now called Technological Entrepreneurship.
Okay.
I don't know if you know the professor for that class, Mike Pape.
No, I don't. Is that in industrial engineering?
It's a business class, but it's a tech elective for industrial engineers.
Okay.
And he had a successful business that he ran, sold it for a pretty decent amount of money.
Right.
And as he's teaching the class, he's pretty much teaching how to start a business from idea, concept all the way through mass producing a product and everything.
Yes.
And as he's teaching the class, he's telling stories of things that he went through personally as he was creating this product, from the idea, the entire process of going all the way through to selling a company for, a decent amount of money. And I think everyone in the class can appreciate that experience that he brings in, that he's not just reading off slides. He's telling, okay, this is what the slide says, but let me tell you how I personally implemented this during my business.
That's
when
the
I
benefit.
was, in charge of thousands of people, in charge of, millions on millions of dollars.
Right.
This is how it was implemented in real life.
Right. Well, I'll tell you 2 stories on that, on entrepreneurship. When I started doing these projects for friends, I realized you have to have some level of protection. We live in a litigious world. Everybody sues everybody, right? So you have to have some umbrella to protect you. So I started what's called an S corporation. Most big companies are called C corporations, and they're humongous. But you and I can start our own company as an S corp. You go to Office Max, you can buy off the shelf. It has stock certificates in there, and it tells you step by step how you start a company. You file with the state. You have to pay for a license, but not big money. But it's a protective measure so that if you ever get sued, they can't touch your personal finances. They can only touch the assets of the company. And if you're smart, you put no assets in the company, so you're protected. And I did that, and I was paying all the fees and doing all that. And then I realized, look, I'm not making a product that's going to blow up and hurt somebody. I'm teaching, or I'm selling my brain power, and I'm not going to get sued for that. So I did away with the S corp, and you could become what's called a sole proprietor. It costs nothing. You're a sole proprietor, and every dollar that you make goes on your personal income taxes. And there's a Schedule C where you can write off expenses. So when I started the company, I thought, okay, I got to get an office. It's got to be a cool office. No, my office is my car, my laptop, don't spend money unnecessarily. So the entrepreneurship part of that is do what's smart for you, for the company. Protect yourself, but you don't need all the big, glorified stuff. If you become humongous, be Elon Musk. Go get a beautiful office somewhere. But if not, you don't need that stuff, right? There's upsides and downsides to entrepreneurship. You can make a lot of money, but you can't lose any money. If you have no work, you didn't lose any money. If you have a lot of work, you've made money. So entrepreneurship is, I guess, an ego booster too. You all, back in the day, I've been teaching now for 20 years. I'd say for the first 10 years, students used to always bring me when they graduated, hey, I got these 5 job offers. Can you tell me, help me, which one I should take? And basically they look at salary. And I said, look, salary is one component. What about benefits and other stuff? So we'd maneuver through that. And I'd give advice, but, it's not my career, it's your career. But the last 10 years, students aren't bringing me 5 offers from companies. They say, I don't want to work for somebody else. I want to work for myself. And that's just as good, right? One student essentially was a reseller. He would buy a bunch of stuff at discount and resell it. And he came into my office one day and he said, I really feel bad because I'm not using my engineering degree. I said, you really are. You just don't know it. I mean, you still have a supply chain. You still have the cost engineering aspects of it. You have to advertise. In fact, you're doing everything, So I don't care where you work. You guys are going to be successful in whatever you do. Some of us like working for big corporations. I like the big corporation because A, there was a comfort factor that they're not going to go out of business. Mm-hmm. But B is, if I stay with this company, I have all kinds of opportunities. If I work for a Lockheed Martin in Orlando, Florida, and after 3 or 4 years, I'm bored or I'm so good, they can move me to Singapore. They could move me to San Francisco. They could move, and they will, and they'll pay all expenses. And you have this big brother taking care of you, So big corporations, for me, were always a security blanket. I've worked for small companies, too, where you do everything, but all the profits go to you, So you may not make $300,000 a year like you would at Lockheed Martin, but in good years, you might get a bonus of $400,000, so 6 one, half dozen of the other. Do what your passion is, and don't be afraid to take risks.
Wow. Well, I think we can get ready to close it out. What advice do you have for any engineering students that wish to pursue entrepreneurship in business?
Follow your passion. I started this podcast by saying, look, when I was your age, I had my entire future planned. I mean, every year. Okay, this year I was going to go to this company and I was going to be there for 3 years before I get my next promotion. And then I'm going to have my first child. And then at the end of my career, I'm going to be the CEO of this corporation. And you might actually get there, but it is not a straight line. You lose a job, you get another opportunity, you do this, you do that. Follow your passion. The old saying, now that I'm an old man, I can say it, find a job you love and you never work a day in your life. Find a job that you love and it's not work. I have worked in companies where you get in there at 8 o'clock in the morning, you put your head down, you do your work, you think, it's got to be close to 5 o'clock, and you look up and it's 11 o'clock in the morning. And it's like, oh God, how am I going to do this for the rest of my life? And I've worked at jobs where I get there at 7 o'clock in the morning, and when I look up, the lights are out, everybody's gone, it's 8 o'clock at night, and I love what I'm doing, and you don't recognize that everybody's gone. So just find something that you really love doing, and don't let people talk you out of it. You know, whether it's your parents, whether it's your friends. Oh, you don't want to do that. You're never going to succeed. Do what you find your passion in. And find a mentor, whether it's me or anybody else. And I'm always available to you all for advice. Advice is cheap, right? I've had students. I have one student. She went to work for Accenture for years and then decided she started her own app. I have 2 app stories. One was she started her own app, and it's called Papaya. And that company has grown significantly. And she used to fly in from California, I guess, and sit with me in my office and conceptualize. And she's built this into a good company. I had another student who started an app, spent $800,000 of his father's inheritance money, and it didn't make a penny. Now, why? Papaya is a tutorial company, and I could certainly see the benefit of that. Peyton started a company of, he was a weightlifter, a bodybuilder, and he started this app, and he just knew everybody in the world was going to do the same thing. Well, it's a very small market of people who want, you know, weightlifting advice, a subscription service. And so I used to say, how many do you need to break even? 3,000. How many do you have? 300. We got a problem. You know, you're losing money fast. So not only do what you're passionate at, but make sure that there's other people as passionate that are going to help you along the way. Yeah. And mentors can help you with that.
Yeah. I think you gave some amazing advice. I definitely had some mentors back at my old company as well. And they've taught me and shaped me like how I am today. So like I very much appreciate them. And I appreciate all the professors that have been helping us in our career journey as well. Like I feel like we've gone very far.
Yeah, well, definitely. I'm very impressed with both of you. You know, you can teach certain things. You can teach technology. You can teach certain skills. But professionalism, maturity that you all have, you can't teach that. You got to have that, and you both do. And that's what's going to propel you even faster than just being the smartest person in the room.
Thank you so much, Dr. Calabrese.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Professor.
Well, thank you, guys. I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm here for you if you need anything.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.